Welcome everyone to today's special Student Couch episode. My name is Yunus and today I'm very happy to be welcoming Navin on this third episode of the Student Couch. On today's episode, I'll be talking with Navin, a student and student assistant at the University of Amsterdam. For the first time listeners, this show is designed and dedicated to understanding the student's story, perspective, voice, and concerns. Now, if you haven't yet, get your coffee or your tea and join us for the next half an hour. Navin, it's great to have you here on this episode. How are you?
It's nice to be here. Pretty good for such a rainy day.
Yeah, it's pretty rainy today, but what have you been up to for the past few days?
Oh, not much. I'm catching up on classes, making sure I'm staying up to date with my lectures and preparing for my tomorrow's class that I'll be teaching.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice, that's great. So you're a communication science. I know we met on, I think the first day of orientation,
Exactly,
right?
the very first day.
Yeah, and ever since it's been horrible, the worst friendship ever.
I know, right?
Yeah, but why did you choose communication science?
Well, just a funny story. I used to study business before in Germany, and I noticed while studying, I wanted to do something that's more marketing oriented, something that's more to do with communication. And I think the program the UvA has is exceptional. It really tailors to my interests. It goes a bit beyond it as well. And I just felt like the syllabus suited me. And ever since I switched, I haven't regretted the decision. So, yeah.
That's great. And what was it like switching programs? Was it difficult making that decision?
I think students that have switched programs can probably relate to it. It's never an easy decision. It's nothing that happens overnight. But at a certain point, you do understand that maybe your classmates in the course like their projects much more, like the classes much more than you do. And you kind of figure out that maybe this is not something for me. Maybe I should find something that interests me as much as this course interests my classmates. And then once your mind, sets to the decision, there's not much you can do to change it until you actually do make the decision to move.
Okay, so you made the decision to move how many years into your business program?
It was 2 years, and
Wow.
I know, probably many people have told me, oh, why don't you finish your last year? I just had to do an exchange and my bachelor thesis, so I was basically done. But for me, it wasn't worth spending another year doing something I didn't like.
Mm-hmm.
And if you look at a sunk cost fallacy, you shouldn't look at what you've invested, but what you can do from this point on. And I'd rather do the bachelor's that I really enjoy than spend another year trying to graduate from a degree that I didn't enjoy as much. And I think it's a tough choice.
Mm-hmm.
And it's something that you need to discuss, of course, with your friends and your family.
Mm-hmm.
But in the end, it's a decision you kind of make independently as well.
Yeah, and what was the support that you had around you during that time? Were your friends mostly encouraging you to change programs? Did they feel that, or were they like, "Man, what the hell are you doing with your life?"
But yeah, I mean, there's a certain level of conflict of interest, right? If you're friends with someone, why would you want your friend to leave you, go away from?
Mm-hmm.
But on the other hand, friends are there to support each other. So in the beginning, the moment you introduce the idea of maybe wanting to change, there's of course a certain level of resistance, or maybe suggestions saying hey, it's only 2 more semesters, you got this. But once they understand also the fact that this decision is probably better for me,
Mm-hmm.
it was quite supportive. I'm still in contact and with a lot of friends from my previous university.
Nice.
So yeah, I'm quite happy the way it worked, and I felt that once I did make the decision for myself, that I've only had support. So yeah, pretty grateful for that.
Yeah, I mean, I've never really had that experience of really switching programs like that. But I do gotta say that I really do feel like if I were to make a decision like that, or if anyone would be, it has to be a choice made by you or the person actually doing that, and not influenced by external factors or things like that. Of course, unless there is some difficulties in some way. But just basically really convincing yourself of the idea you're taking on. So that way there's no regret or no sort of attachments that you don't want to keep in a way.
Exactly. I think you need to know why you're changing, right? Whether it's you don't want to study. Some people might just want to start working. Are you changing because environment isn't good? You need to know why you're changing. But if you know it
Mm-hmm.
and you know the change is actually going to address the issue,
Mm-hmm.
then I think it's worth it.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's great. So you switched programs. Now you're within communication science. How has your experience been so far? Have you enjoyed it?
Yeah, it's been pretty great. I did my business administration bachelor's in Germany, and it's a slightly different learning style to what we have here in the Netherlands. I quite like it here. It's very much hands-on. During tutorial classes, you engage with the teacher a lot more in a almost personal level. The course has been also like constructed quite well. A lot of the topics are up to date, and I could see the purpose behind most of the stuff I was doing. So I've had a pretty good learning experience, and I feel like it helped also a lot for my personal development.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
That's awesome. And then this year, I heard you decided to take on the role of student assistant.
Exactly. I'm teaching tutorial classes for persuasive communication, more specifically the classes that revolve around writing a literature review. I teach the classes and I grade the weekly assignments.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's cool. And how did you get the position?
Well, I saw the listing went online. I think there was a newsletter and a post on Instagram, social media. I looked at it and teaching was something that interested me. It's something my mom does, and I felt like I want to like explore it. Maybe not professionally in my future, but something I'd like to try. And then I just took the shot and landed a position.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's great. And so you sort of already had the interest in teaching before you found the position in a way, or at
Yeah.
least the experience.
A bit. I've tutored before,
Mm-hmm.
but more on a one-on-one level,
Mm-hmm.
and I quite enjoyed it. It's satisfying when you can like convey something to someone who didn't know it before, and you see how they like learn it. It's a rewarding experience. Yeah.
That's really cool. And so your mom is also a teacher?
Yeah, she started to teach me in middle school for a
Wow.
year or two.
How was that?
I mean, it's not that fun. I think the hardest part is knowing how to dress her.
Yeah.
Whether
Teacher
it's
or
a
mom?
miss
Yeah.
or yeah, exactly. But I only had it for like only 2 years, I think. And
Okay. And was it 2 years for as in your whole day is with her, or is it 2 years?
only like math.
Cool.
Yeah, she's like a teaching assistant as well.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah.
Nice, nice. And so, what does a day in your life look like now, as a student assistant? I mean, balancing between, sort of your role as a student assistant, your role as a student, and just your life in general.
Well, I think a certain level of time management is important. I don't schedule my days by the hour,
Mm-hmm.
but I know what needs to be completed when. So I make sure I stay up to date with my lectures just because I can't afford catching up. Might not have the time to sit down and catch up on like 5 lectures. And I think also for grading, that takes a lot of time. I set aside like almost 2 days for it. Not the whole day, but just split apart so I can stay concentrated when I work.
Mm-hmm.
So I've dedicated work time slots during my week, and the rest I try to like adapt because workloads change. Some weeks you have more assignments, some week you have less.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's not always very easy, but so far I haven't missed a deadline. I haven't felt like I was under too much pressure either. Yeah, let's see how it goes.
That's awesome. And so um, so throughout the day, you try to focus your energy on all of these different parts, or do you try to spend one day doing only like your student things, or one day doing only the teaching things?
Given a choice, I'd like to just do one activity a day, just because I can stay in that mindset, stay in the zone.
Yeah.
However, of course, there's certain days where I need to maybe in the evening do a bit for one, and maybe I need to work on a assignment I have for my minor, or I need to maybe grade like 2 more papers. That happens. I also don't mind it. I usually have breaks of like free time. I don't study and then I start grading or preparing. Yeah, but
Cool.
Given a choice, I'd like to keep them separate during the day. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it also kind of allows for a bit more focus on what you're doing exactly, and so
Exactly.
more intentions put into it and things like that. What do you enjoy the most about being a student assistant?
I think I like the teaching aspect. Like standing in a classroom, I don't try to pretend to have a form of authority and be in a certain level superior to the students, especially since we are very much in the same age group. However, I like helping out. It's like helping out your fellow students. It's a course I did the previous year. So I know what worked. I know students that struggled with the course. So I know what are common issues and difficulties students face. And I try to provide like the best learning experience and feedback for them. Because I do understand that sometimes an assignment is annoying to complete. Sometimes you might think you know how to do it, and that's why you don't want to submit it. But I try to create like a discussion and a safe learning environment for my students.
Cool. And so about your experience as a student, now we were talking a little bit more about the things you kind of enjoyed and that taught you something and that was useful to you for as a student assistant. What are some parts of your experience as a student that you did not enjoy so much and that you found tutorial teachers could be doing something better in?
It's tough, especially since my comparison is to my previous university, where the student-teacher interaction was very low to almost non-existent.
Yeah.
My tutorial teacher probably didn't necessarily even know half the students that were in the classroom because you could go to any tutorial you wanted to.
Wow.
So yeah, the level of student-teacher interaction is definitely a lot better here. I've been mostly quite satisfied. In some instances, I had wished for a bit more feedback than I received, or maybe a bit more clearer feedback on how to address my issues.
Yeah.
However, it's never been too much of a problem, and most of my teachers, fortunately, have been quite good. Yeah.
That's great. Now, as you're sort of getting to experience the student life through this other lens as a teacher, what is some things that you would like tell yourself as a student now that you see yourself as a teacher?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of work the teachers do that students don't realize. Showing up early to the classroom, preparing material, trying to understand the course to its fullest extent, so that you can provide information to the students and you can answer questions. So it's a lot more work than you might just assume. It's not just showing up and reading off presentation slides. Also, grading takes a lot more time than you'd assume. I think there's a certain level of patience you should have with your teachers. I only teach one tutorial, but I know colleagues of mine that teach several. So they have a very tight schedule, and to an extent, I would say teaching a class is definitely a lot more work than attending a single class. So yeah, I'm definitely like seeing why feedback is given in a certain way. I'm understanding how much work is actually like put into a class. Why you can't always make the fanciest presentation slides. If you have 50 slides each week, it's a lot of work. Yeah, I think I have a lot more respect for what the teachers do.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just getting to hear your experience and everything you've been telling me about being a teacher, I'm definitely more, what's the right word for this? Maybe more empathetic towards teachers in a way.
Yeah.
More considerate of what they're actually kind of going through. Especially, I mean, sometimes as a student, I would find myself like kind of like frustrated as to what I might feel like is not the education I want to receive, or the teaching style does not really fit the way I want to learn. But sometimes I also forget to consider the fact that maybe even the teacher is a human being, and at the end of the day, they also have a long day. They have a lot of things to do. They not only have to learn the material, but also teach it to you in a way that is understandable. So definitely, I think all of us need to be a bit more compassionate and caring for teachers and understanding of them mostly. The same way they
Exactly.
should of us.
Yeah, no,
students.
definitely. I think it's a give and play kind of
Mhm.
situation. And yeah, for a student, you mostly have like one question and you wonder why it didn't get answered immediately. But for a teacher, it's 25 different questions that you have and you need to address. Um, yeah, there's a lot more that a teacher has on hand, and at the end of the day, a teacher doesn't necessarily know everything.
Mhm.
So sometimes they might not understand the question that's being asked, or it's something they need to check in again, because even if you're 95% sure, you don't want to take the risk of giving them accidentally a wrong answer. So yeah, sometimes you gotta follow back and come back later with an answer.
Mhm.
So yeah, if your teacher's taking a bit more time, maybe a gentle like an email reminder to see if they could answer a question. It's nice, but most of the time, teachers are doing the absolute best to help the student.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. And now the hope is just that the students are also doing their absolute
yeah,
best to be learning.
exactly.
And I mean, I can only imagine that as a teacher, it could also be frustrating if you have frustrated students who are trying to understand but not putting in as much effort as they could be giving or as they could be putting in. Do you see that in any way happening where some students could be frustrated for something like that?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I can tell most students, at least for me, um, they put in time and thought behind what they do.
Mm-hmm.
However, sometimes they might have missed one sentence in the instruction, or they accidentally went off a tangent,
Yeah.
and then a certain percentage of their work needs to be redone. And the bigger that percentage is, the more frustrating it is. And it's not something, you know, personal to them, right? It's just a error they made, and they worked upon that error,
Mm-hmm.
and then it's of course annoying to have to correct that while new work is being given.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, of course, I can do my best to motivate my students and give them feedback where they can, but if they also decide not to participate, submit stuff, it's there's nothing I can like act upon that, right? I can't
Yeah.
give them feedback on something that's missing. Um, but yeah, mostly it's been quite good. Yeah.
Awesome. And so, just to sort of wrap up our conversation, any last advice or words to students listening in?
I,
Anything regarding maybe how to manage schoolwork, balancing between everything, or just how to keep the motivation to stick all the way to the end?
yeah, no, it's a good question. I think there's no secret formula on success at university. It's quite dependent on how you learn.
Mm-hmm.
I think my best advice is participate as much as you can in the classroom, even if you're making mistakes or you're asking questions that might seem like it's annoying your students or your teacher. But anything that you answer in a classroom setting is something you generally don't make a mistake again. And whether it's an exam or an assignment, try to maximize the resources you're also paying for, right, with your tuition.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, and I do notice that once one person puts their hands up in the classroom, I see more hands and the interaction starts. Um, that being said, some people are also more introverted and might not feel that comfortable. You can contact your teachers via email, but there are also lots of resources on Canvas most of the time where you
Mm-hmm.
can read upon. Um, as long as you know how much work is ahead of you and how much time you have, keeping that in mind, you should decide how you want to space out your work. Yeah, and as long as you stick to your certain targets you give, I think it's fine, because most of the time you do get a lot of feedback, and um, the workload isn't always less. Sometimes it's quite a lot for students,
Mm-hmm.
but if you follow through, um, it usually works out, because you do see most students do pass, and the pass rate is usually quite high. It depends on the course, of course, but yeah, I think it also helps a lot when students partner up with another student, so you can like support each other, encourage each other to work, answer each other's questions. That helps a lot, because I think hearing something from another student's perspective is sometimes a lot more enlightening than hearing it from a teacher who knows the content already and who knows like the next two steps as well.
Yeah.
Sometimes it helps like looking from ground zero onwards. Yeah.
Yeah, and then just being around kind of around people who are also trying to learn the same subject as you are, and discussing it and talking about it as well is like more contact with the subject to just help you understand it better. Absolutely. But Navin, thank you so much really for being with us today, talking to us about your experience as a student assistant and your advice to students out there that could be struggling with managing their time and their priorities and things like that. I'd also really like to thank the Medium team for helping us promote this episode, and to really everyone else out there that's involved in making this happen. Join us next week for another episode of the Student Couch, and be sure to send us your suggestions for future topics or guests. If you're a student out there and you want to be on here, you're more than welcome. Just shoot us a message on Instagram. Now, this show is brought to you by Medium Magazine, the fully student-led magazine of communication science. To learn more or check out our latest articles, you can visit our website on www.mediummagazine.nl. To join our team, be sure to check out our open positions on our latest posts or on our website. My name is Yunus. This was Student Couch, and I'll see you next week. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.